Hey everybody, Brett here from Nextfly. Just wanted to do a crash course here on how to set up an EC2 server on Amazon that has a full image of WordPress and all of the necessary requirements to get that going. Now this is going to be a very fast installation of WordPress with very minimal configurations, basically just out of the box WordPress install. In later videos, I'll show you how to get into php-my-admin and different interfaces that will help you have a little bit more control over your WordPress install. But just out of the box, this is the fastest way that I've found to do this, and it's pretty simple. Not a whole lot that can go wrong. So just figured maybe making a video of this would be a little easier for people to follow along and do it themselves, as reading through the different guides that are out there and walkthroughs are just brutal. So we're just going to start with this. If you like it, great. If it doesn't help you, I'm sorry. But this will, by the end of this, you'll know how to do really basic things, but more importantly, have a full WordPress installation ready for you to load content to, but ready for you to upload your own template, theme files, whatever, and start being able to have a site on the internet. For cheap. I think we'll look at the pricing here, but I think it only ends up being like $7-8 a month or something. So for a real basic site. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do here, I'm logged into Amazon. You have to create an account through the Amazon AWS. That's pretty self-explanatory. It might ask you some billing information, that sort of thing. But once you're here, this will be your dashboard for your EC2. Now, Amazon obviously has a tremendous amount of other services back here. This is all we're really going to mess with, though. It's just going to be this EC2 part. So first step is we're going to go to Amazon AWS Marketplace. And I didn't even type in Amazon right. Okay, cool. So once we're back here, these are kind of like images that have already been created that you can use to kind of speed your server along. Now you could manually configure all these if you want to, but this definitely saves you a tremendous amount of time. So we're simply going to type in WordPress. There's a lot of different options. I typically just roll with this general Bitnami installation. It seems to work well. I haven't had any issues with it. So come here. It kind of goes through the different pricing. This is for the region. So we are on the east, closer to the East Coast, so I'm just going to leave it here. But if wherever you live, you can choose different options there, and the pricing will be a little bit different. But I think this micro server is what we're going to go with, and that works for most general sites, blogs, just smaller sites that don't get a tremendous amount of traffic or have a lot of processing to do. It works really well. But before we do that, I'd like to create a key pair, which will come in handy later. So you just come into the Amazon dashboard here, and then there's a bunch of options, but we're just going to go right here to this key pair. Once we're here, create new key pair, name it whatever you want. I'm going to name it what the domain is. That's the domain we're going to be using. It's just a throwaway domain I have. So create, and you'll see that just automatically made me download a file. We're going to move that to the desktop. And for whatever reason, I think this is a Safari thing. It added a txt to the end of this. So just going to remove that. The name should be whatever we just named it, which in this case was strict, and then it's .pem. Okay? Once we have this file, this is going to be an important file. I would suggest that you have backups of it in safe places. This is going to be like the key, the main password to get into your site through SSH and other ways. So in this particular case, I can show you how to open this and actually see the contents of it. See, it's just a key. But this is important. This is like one password, okay? So the next step here is going to come back to this window, the marketplace window. Hit continue on this WordPress installation. And then this is where you can actually make the selections. Now be careful, because like by default it's an M3 medium. This is not going to be cheap. This is $48.24 a month. You definitely do not need this big of an installation for a really general site. I mean, it goes all the way up to $2,481 a month right here in the cost estimator. So be careful on this particular option because that will cost you. But we just want this little baby server, the T2 Micro. Ends up being about $864 a month. So, and if we ever want to change this, we really can very simply in the back end, inside of this the management console here. We can upgrade this or downgrade this as you need. If you start seeing the site traffic getting slower, or the server just not being as responsive as it once was, we can go in and make those changes. All right. So security group, I'm just going to leave that. That's basically just opening the ports necessary to have to be able to connect to the different services. Like SSH port 22 needs to be open. HTTP is just general web traffic, not secure. And then HTTPS is an SSL cert connected through 443. So just leave this. Key pair here, we're just going to select the strict pair that we made. That's important. That's like setting, again, the password up to connect to this particular server. And then we launch with one click. This one thing I did miss here is the region. If you want to change the region, you can do that. It's not really going to change much, but I'm just going to keep it here. This is the one I've got most of our stuff on. Oh, that changed. And then again, I just left out all this other stuff default. But if you need to change the region, you can. So launch. Now this is going to take, you'll see that it just went through. This is going to take just under 5 minutes to complete. So once this is done, I'll be back. All right, so welcome back. It is done installing. So we can go over here to the management console, click on instances, and you will see it right there. That is the new server. It still looks like it's going through some initialization checks. Let's go ahead and grab this public DNS link here and test it. Yep, sure enough, there is a WordPress installation. Now, we're not done yet. There's still a few more things that you need to do in order to get this thing kind of operational. The one thing you'll notice here is you have this Bitnami banner down here. I'm going to show you how to remove that. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to get the contact form, the Sendmail form working, because right out of the box, the server is not configured to send mail. What that means is if you install a contact form on here and it uses the Sendmail protocol, which is pretty normal for most contact forms, the server's not going to be able to send it. So you won't be able to receive contact forms. If you install WooCommerce or some kind of shopping cart on here, you're not going to get any order receipts emailed. Basically, any communication from the website won't work. So I'm going to show you how to fix that too. So now that we're good to go on this, though, there's a couple things that we need to do. And there's not any special order here. You can do this in whatever order you want. But a very important step here is once this is configured and done, you want to right-click on it. And you want to go to Get System Log. You have one try to do this. If you don't grab this in time, scroll all the way down. If you don't grab this password in time, this password is very, very crucial for a lot of different things. One is to log into WordPress, but number two is going to be like, that's your root password to get into php-my-admin if you ever want to do any database management and stuff. Using that server or that program, this password is required. If you do not have this, there's no way to retrieve it. The only other way is to actually write a script to reset the password, and it is not fun to do. So again, copy this, paste this in a secure place, email it to yourself, text it to yourself, do whatever you need to do, but you cannot lose this particular password. But just to make sure that it is working, I'm going to go ahead and try to log in. So wp-admin. The username is user. The password is going to be that password. Remember me. Sure, we'll save it. Okay, so that got us into the back end. Now, just as an extra layer of security, if it were me, I would come into users, go into this particular user, and I would change the password. You can do that by clicking this right here. I'm not going to do that because I don't care this password, because I'm going to be deleting this whole install as soon as I'm done showing you how to do it. So, but I would suggest changing this password to something you know, or using whatever it put in there for you in the first place. Okay, so I'm going to grab a screenshot of this too, just to make sure I don't lose it. All right, so we are done in there. So the next thing that I want to do is I actually want to get a static IP going. So this does have this public DNS, and it does have this public IP attached to it. What I don't know is if that IP will stay intact, and it's going to be important that this IP stays intact if you're associating a domain to it, because that's where we're going to be pointing that A record to. So we need to get what's called an elastic IP. To get an elastic IP, you just come over here to under Network and Security, click Elastic IPs. Now you'll see I already have one in here, but if I needed a new one, you could just click Allocate New Address, and you hit Submit, and it gives you one. Once you have one, it looks just like this. So I'm just going to select this, and then I'm going to associate the address. It's going to go to the super long one. Private IP is that. Whatever shows up there, associate. Now that we just did that, if you go back over to instances, and we click here, this public IP, let's refresh. Well, what the heck? It did not associate. Oops. Click here, associate address. That. I think it's because this IP was already used for something else. There we go. So now I've got that 3.4 address, 3.4.196. You'll also notice that this public DNS changed. This will take about 30 seconds to propagate, usually anyway. So if I come over here and I type this in, leave page. Oh, there you go. It went immediately this time. So now we have that working address, but give it a second. If it doesn't load right away, sometimes that does take a second to work through the system. Now we've got this 3.4.196.92.205. So we're going to copy that. And we are going to use that inside of GoDaddy or whatever your domain registrar is, okay? So you log in, you get to the domain, you can get to their DNS file. I have GoDaddy hosting the DNS, which is pretty typical, I think, to have your registrar do that. If you host your own name servers and you host your own DNS and you have your name servers pointed to somewhere else, this is where you would need to make that change. In this situation, again, I have them here. So there's a bunch of records in here. The only record that I care about is the A record. There could already be one here. There's not in this particular case. But if there was one here, you would be looking for the @ symbol or just the domain.com, nothing else associated with it. So we are going to add a record because it does not exist. So we click Add Record. Type A. Host is going to be points to that IP address that we got from the dashboard on the EC2 management console right here, this public IP, which is also the elastic IP. And then time, we'll go a half hour. This is time to live, so the faster this is, just kind of propagates a little bit quicker. Finish. Save changes. Okay. So now that we've made that change, it could take 1 minute, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, depending on what your internet service provider is for this, which is strict.com, to point to this IP address for you to actually see that change. Now, I do know a little bit of a shortcut to speed that up, and it's by going into your network preferences, and you can go here to Advanced, DNS, and then change the DNS server. This is Comcast 75.75.75.75. So I'm going to delete that and add a new one. And I'm going to go 8.8.8.8. That's Google. That's Google's DNS. Hit OK. hit apply. And if we go to strict.com, boom, you'll see that that is now working. So if it doesn't work right away, just give it a little bit more time. That is how you do that part. But sometimes propagation can really throw you for a loop. Keep this password down here because we're going to have to log back in. User G86V1GGNAXF7. Oh, G86V1GG. There we go. We're in. So now that we're logged in there, we've got the domain pointed. The next step here is going to be to connect to the server through SSH so we can make a couple changes. For one, I'd like to get rid of this Bitnami icon down here, this little banner deal. And then the second thing is going to be to install a form so you can send mail from your website. Now, sending mail from your website would be contact forms, any messages from WordPress. If you install like a shopping cart system, that will use Sendmail as the delivery method of those particular emails. Out of the box, this image does not have Sendmail enabled. So we have to enable that to make that work. It's pretty simple to do, but there are a couple different commands. And again, I will put all of these commands in the notes right below the video. So again, these are just very general commands. But those are two things that I think that you would want to do too, getting this thing kind of going. All right. So first step is I had the PEM file that we downloaded at the beginning of this video. That is the security. That's the key group to get us into this particular server. So I went ahead and I moved it into, into users home, this is just your home directory. And the reason I did that, so you'll see strict.pem right there. The reason I did that was because once you open up terminal, that's the default directory. So if you don't want it in this directory and you'd rather have it on your desktop, you can do that. It just has a better chance of probably getting deleted. And in order to connect to it, you need to either call it in from that file, the whole entire file name, or you would need to change directories and actually go into your desktop to do that. So we're not going to do that. Don't need to do that. It's just sitting right in here, so that's good to go. So the command to get in here is going to be this is connecting to the server. SSH. Actually, you know what? One thing we need to do actually before we do this is change the permissions on this PEM file. I forgot about that because terminal won't be able to use it without changing the permissions. So let's do that first. The command to do that is just going to be CHMOD 600, I think it is, and then strict.pem. All right, so that should be good to go now. Now we're going to go ahead and type in, this is the connection, SSH-I. Okay, call in the key group, strict.pem. And then we're going to connect to Bitnami at strict.com. Now we're using strict.com because it's propagated. If it hasn't propagated yet, you can use this public DNS in place of the domain. So in that case, it would be Bitnami at EC2-34 blah, 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 blah.com. Okay. But since it's propagated for us, we can just use strict.com. So I hit enter, type in yes, I would like to continue. I know that. Boom. We are now connected to the server. Okay. So the first command that we're going to do in order to remove that banner is real simple. It's just sudo /opt bitnami /apps/wordpress /bnconfig --disable _banner1. Once that's complete, that banner is gone. Bye-bye. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is we're going to want to get back to this window and we want to install the Sendmail program. So the Sendmail program, just to get the app installed, is going to be sudo apt-get install Sendmail. Now this will take a second for it to actually download. While that's doing that, you can go in here and not even have to really connect through FTP. Yes, I want to continue. There we go. You can actually go into Appearance Themes and upload your theme files right from here. Add new. So once you're ready to get to that point, you can do that. There's also obviously a ton that you can just like click on download for free. Okay, so this is done. So the next step is, after that's installed, we have got to go into the php-ini file and make changes to that. We need to really just comment out one particular line. And once that line is commented out, we restart, and Sendmail is now enabled. It's that simple. So we need to get into the php-ini file. To do so, it's sudo nano /opt/bitnami /php/etc/php.ini. Hit enter. This is what it should be looking like for you. Now we're going to hit Control W. That brings up the search. And we're looking for Sendmail_path. All right, hit enter, and it should bring you right to that line. So all I'm going to do is uncomment that out, and that's it. We hit Control X. Yes, I would like to save, and then save it as that same file. Just hit enter again. So you hit Y and then enter. That just rewrote or saved that line that we just changed in the php-ini. Now we need to just restart the php-fpm so it sees that change. To do that is sudo /opt-bitnami ctlscript.sh restart php-fpm. Hit enter. That is now restarting that service. And it is stopped, and now it is started. And then it should complete. Very good. So now Sendmail works. Now the website can send emails as necessary with no additional settings. So that is basically how you do this. You've got your website. We've showed you how to log in, showed you how you can upload themes, plugins. I mean, everything's kind of out of the box, ready to go at this point. So you can get on with working on your website. And in future videos, I'm going to show slightly more advanced options. Like I said, getting into the PHP MyAdmin can be a little tricky. So I'm going to show how to do that, along with maybe installing an SSL cert on the server. So hopefully that will help too. Again, there's a million different ways you could do this. This is just the way that I've found to work really quite well. It's pretty simple, not a lot you can screw up, and it's fast. I mean, you can do that whole thing in a matter of a couple minutes. So not a bad way to host a website using Amazon. It's totally scalable. As your website continues to grow in traffic, you can very easily increase the memory and, really anything, hard disk space, you name it. So I hope you found this helpful. Subscribe, and I'll have more videos to show as time goes on. Thank you.